This week on the video version of the business of tech, a coming decrease in revenue and increase in cost for 2022, a third Log4j vulnerability and usage in the wild, Microsoft's right to repair change for Surface devices, Omicron looms over next year with changing plans galore, and the Q4 diversity report. All this and more. Hit those like and subscribe buttons, and here are this week's stories. The NPD Group has released its latest forecast for the U.S. B2B technology channel. They're predicting a 2% decline in revenue for 2022, although a return to growth in 2023. We're seeing some of why. IDC says PC monitor demand shrunk for the first time since the pandemic started. It's the first year-over-year decline, 7.2% down compared to the same quarter in 2020. Continuing to look ahead, Robert Half, the HR consulting group, reports on salary data, predicting an average pay increase of 3.8% in 2022. Continued high demand in cloud computing, AI and machine learning, and data analytics. However, the Federal Reserve notes that the U.S. is on the cusp of full employment. Why do we care? I'll be doing my own prediction series next week, but this data is something of an insight. Don't assume sunshine and unicorns ahead. Eventually, that pandemic buying buzz would slow and monitor sales seems like a good indicator. As 2022 begins, revenue may be slightly off, but note those salary pressures. That's the more significant concern for services companies. With the weekend came more Log4j news. First, there's a new attack vector and a new patch. Bulmera's security team said it discovered the potential for an alternative attack vector in the Log4j vulnerability. The latest upgrade target is 2.17.0 to avoid the denial of service condition. On Friday, CISA issued an emergency directive ordering federal civilian entities to take immediate action on the issue. The directive gives federal agencies until December 23 to detail all of the internet-facing installations of the software on their networks and turn the information over to CISA. Agencies must also check to see if their networks employ publicly available software that utilizes Log4j. The concern may lie in the reports that the Conti gang is now the first professional ransomware operation that's pulled Log4Shell into their daily operations. They're focused explicitly on VMware vCenter servers known to be vulnerable. Beyond that, the Drydex malware is a banking Trojan and is now being deployed via the Log4j vulnerability. Verified by cybersecurity research group Cryptolamus, this has been linked to the Evil Core hacking group. Why do we care? Tactically, Log4j is proving to be the gift that keeps on giving for the holidays. Multiple patch iterations make resolving the issue highly problematic and make a difficult situation worse. With the holidays coming, the work isn't over. Strategically, none of this should be a surprise. If you're interested in a long read, let me tease with this quote of an opinion piece by Matt Assay. Just don't blare headlines like open source can be an open door for hackers, as the Financial Times did, and don't use the problem to start banging the drum of open source sustainability crises. Open source isn't a security problem, and open source sustainability is a complicated issue. Instead, it's time to recognize, as Matt Klein, founder and maintainer of the Envoy open source project, has done, that all we can do is accept the reality of bugs and outages, do the best that we can to mitigate, learn, and improve, and wait for the next one. I'm watching my own hot takeometer here too, although I do think there's more to dig into with open source sustainability. Just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's a black box never to be touched. Don't want a hot take, but I do want the industry to have a conversation. Last week, I covered the EO from the White House around customer experience. Turns out the Fed is doing better there already. Forrester's annual U.S. Federal Customer Experience Index shows a 1.5-point increase over 2020. Rick Parrish, vice president and principal analyst at Forrester, said the latest federal customer experience is a good news, bad news story. On the one hand, scores improved in 6 of 15 key agencies Forrester measured, including a major improvement at the Transportation Security Administration. On the other, the federal average score of 62.6 out of a possible 100 still lags 10.7 points behind the private sector average. On average, the news is good. Agencies are up 1.5 points and the highest we've ever seen. But of course, a 62.6 on a 100-point scale leaves a lot of opportunity for improvement, Parrish told NextGov, where this was quoted liberally from. Why do we care? Because this reinforces the point I made last week. The floor is rising. Sure, the private sector is ahead, and I would expect it to always be ahead. It had better be ahead, as the floor is rising. Are there ways to reduce friction in the way you do business? Top of mind for me today. Snow Software with their analysis of IT managers and executives, quoting ZDNet. 89% of IT leaders claimed that IT roles were undervalued pre-COVID, but are now viewed as essential, with 90% claiming they have become trusted advisors to the business. In addition, 94% of IT managers consider innovation a top priority for their organization, although 71% say IT spends too much time reacting to problems instead of innovating. Top priorities for IT leaders next year are adopting new technology to improve day-to-day operations at 30%, reducing IT costs at 28%, and improving customer service and satisfaction at 28%. While 94% of leaders said their organization has become more innovative when it comes to IT and technology resources, they also say they are challenged to deliver innovation and spend too much time reacting to problems, 71%. Now, why do we care? IT spends too much time reacting to problems instead of innovating. Sounds like something I would say over and over. Nothing here is necessarily surprising, although solving the same issues repeatedly in the same way and expecting results seems like a losing strategy. I was struck by a help desk piece in the Washington Post today about helping family members with IT issues over the holiday, and was left with the question, have we armed these users with the right solutions? I've shared the list. It's a long list of things IT people should do for their families, and it reads like a personal version of the IT department's long list. What struck me was wondering if the complexity given to users shows a mismatch to their needs. To improve customer satisfaction and service, perhaps less, maybe more. Microsoft has paired with iFixit to make Microsoft Service Tools for Surface available. Viewed as a move to support the right to repair, the tools include options for working with the adhesive within the devices. The intention is to give Fixit Pro independent repairers, Microsoft authorized service providers, Microsoft Experience Centers, and Microsoft commercial customers the ability for repairs more than consumers directly. Why do we care? It's a step even to get this outside the walls of Microsoft, and again points to the right to repair movement gaining traction. A win is a win. DropSuite provides backup, archiving, and recovery solutions delivered at scale to power your business defense of cloud services. Award-winning, safe, secure, and scalable, as well as trusted by top channel partners like Pax8 and SureWeb. DropSuite protects Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, and email from the full range of threats, accidental deletion to full-on cyber attacks, all with an understanding of what MSPs need to be successful and compliant. Interested? Learn more right at dropsuite.com. ISG released figures for global spending on IT and business process services, projecting a large volume of contracts up for renewal. About 3/4 of the renewals due this year are IT outsourcing contracts, with the remainder business process outsourcing agreements, said ISG. Contracts worth a total of $18.5 billion are due to expire in 2022, and about half of the renewals are expected in the Americas. Channel Futures out with their MSP 501 2021 report. With a data-less headline of a banner year for MSPs, security dominated the revenue and product data. The top revenue-producing solution was Help Desk Service Desk at 69%, although the most significant growth had security in the top 3 spots: security, endpoint security, and network security. And in a data point about the value of the work layer, Zoom has launched their first Partner Demand Center. It's a series of marketing resources designed for Zoom partners to grow their business. Why do we care? The renewal data intrigues me. If anyone would have it, it's ISG. So knowing there's a lot out there for renewals reminds me of year-end. You should have raised your prices. Oh, and Zoom has a partner program. The only reason we care is that it highlights the value of the work layer, and you should have your attention there. As we slow down for the holidays, a couple of security stories. According to cybersecurity firm Avast, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom has been hit with a cyber attack. Avast did not identify the federal agency affected, but the record determined it was the U.S. CIRF. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency declined to comment on the attack and said all requests for more information should go to the agency that did not respond to requests for comment. Meanwhile, the FBI reports active exploits of Manage Engine's Desktop Central product due to a flaw exposed back in October. A patch was released on December 3rd. The FBI now says it observed IPT actors compromising Desktop Central servers using the flaw to drop a web shell that overrides a legitimate function of Desktop Central. Microsoft has released the final version of Security Configuration Baseline Settings for Windows 10, version 21H2. The highlight of the new Windows 10 security baseline is the addition of tamper protection as a setting to enable by default. This was also made a default setting in the Windows 11 security baseline 2 months ago. Security analysts from NCC Group report that ransomware attacks in November 2021 increased over the past month, with double extortion continuing to be a powerful tool in threat actors' arsenal. Threat actors' focus is also shifting to entities belonging to the government sector, which received 400% more attacks than in October. The spotlight in November was stolen by the PYSA ransomware group, which had an explosive rise in infections, recording an increase of 50%. That all from Bleeping Computer. Why do we care? So I'll note I won't be doing news shows next week, but Log4j probably won't slow down. The warnings have been constant all month, so at this point, I'm expecting everyone is executing their holiday playbook. A recent discussion I was involved in highlighted the concern that many small providers don't have one. If that's true for your business, it's never too late to fix that. And the Business of Tech's 2021 Q4 Diversity Report, tracking 301 companies resulting in 3,014 individuals. 86.18% white, 11.44% non-white, and 1.39% black. 80.32% male, and 19.52% female. Since June of this year, that's 1% more white and 0.5% less black. It's about 0.5% more female. Looking back a year, the figures are about 2% more white in the tracking data, and the industry appears 1% more female since that December 2020 report. Let's couple this with some research from ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks found that of the 300,000 IT specialists from ethnic minorities in the UK in 2020, only 37% were in positions of responsibility, compared with 41% of their white counterparts. IT workers from ethnic minorities were also twice as likely to be in non-permanent positions than white IT workers. Why do we care? Couple this podcast research with that ThoughtWorks data, and in your own business, find ways to diversify leadership. Go back into the bonus episode from the weekend with Jennifer Brown to get some actionable steps, and focus on doing it because it will drive business. A bit of a bummer before the holiday break. CNBC is reporting how any return to the office date is useless. Nick Bloom, a Stanford Graduate School business professor who researches remote work, says CEOs should scrap any plans to bring workers back to offices in January and communicate that they'll revisit the idea mid-month after the holiday travel season. From there, if low COVID caseloads and transmission rates permit it, they might consider reopening in early February, with an optional return and scale up to a full return through the end of March. Bill Gates canceled his holiday plans, citing that close friends of his have COVID-19. I've also linked to a NextGov article on overall sentiment for holiday travel. Of course, more data says you're not getting workers back in the office anyway. A recent Microsoft survey found that UK techies felt even stronger about the issue. This survey found that over half of the employees would consider quitting if forced back into the office. The Future Forum Pulse survey found that IT workers in the US, UK, Australia, France, Germany, and Japan all had one thing in common. Most want to work at least part of the time remotely. To be precise, 75% want flexibility in where they work, while 93% want flexibility when they work. Why? The top reason? Better work-life balance. That pulled from ZDNet. And adding to this, CES is turning out to be a concern. T-Mobile, Amazon, Meta, Twitter, Pinterest, and iHeartRadio have all announced they won't attend, and tech publications like The Verge, CNET, Engadget, TechCrunch, TechRadar, and Tom's Guide have followed suit, all due to Omicron concerns. Why do we care? I did the security bummer news yesterday and COVID bummer news today. This is the last day of news coverage for this pod, and so take the time of the holiday season to recharge and stay safe, because 2022 looks to be turbulent. I'm left thinking a lot about marathon runners, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. How about some data from Speed Test about the satellite internet? Quoting the article, consumers in the US looking to use satellite service to connect to the internet will find that performance was mostly flat when comparing Q3 2021 to Q2 2021. Starlink's median download speed decreased from 97 megabytes during Q2 to 87 megabytes in Q3, which could be a function of adding more customers. HughesNet's followed distantly at 19 compared to 19.73 they saw in Q2 2021, and Viasat third at 18.75 megs compared to 18.13 in Q2 2021. For comparison, the median download speed for all fixed broadband providers in the US during Q3 2021 was 119.84 megs and 115 in Q2 2021. Ookla did a similar study, finding Starlink's median download speeds only saw a slight increase to 90.67, up 3 megabytes from last quarter. And why all my coverage on broadband? As CIO Dive observes, this could expand where people work, including rural areas. Now, why do we care? I'm with the analysts at CIO Dive that this could be a model shift, and I'll also note that satellite internet appears to have a ways to go, particularly when I compare against 5G. Oh, and 5G isn't available everywhere and has its own painful rollout. I continue to believe providers should be pushing for more investment here, and likely at a government level. Investments in the interstate system drive growth, so here too. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in the Business of Tech. Shows come out each week, pulling together the daily podcast. If you like this show, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The content here is possible because of supporters like you. If you want access to shows early, answers to your questions, and private interactions, join our Patreon. It's pay what you want. You decide what the content is worth. Join at patreon.com/MSPradio. Patreons also get access to the written versions of every story as they come out. If you want the stories right away, you can get them on the daily podcast. Find The Business of Tech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. Subscribe links at businessof.tech, and I'll talk to you again next week.